Hey everybody, it's Mr. K. Welcome back to music. We're going to be going over some of the quick fundamentals about music notation. So as you can see here, I have my whiteboard, which has a bunch of lines and this squiggly little thing here. So let's go over what this is really quick. This is the music staff. All right, and we call it that because we can. The music staff has 5 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Remember, always start from the bottom when we're at music. And it has 4 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4. Easy way to kind of remember this is our hand. Our hand also has 5 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 4 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4. So when we're identifying notes, that's what we're going to get to in a second, on this staff, we can use our hand if we don't have something to write with readily. Alrighty, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Pretty simple, right? Now let's go to this squiggly guy right here. This right here is called a treble clef. And it's called that because, well, treble is known as the higher notes in music. And so this is actually showing us the higher notes on a piano. So now that we have these two things established, let's talk about our music alphabet because that comes into play here. What we have is 7 letters in our music alphabet, instead of the 26 that we have for our speaking alphabet. Our 7 musical letters in our alphabet are A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. There's no H, there's no I, there's no M, there's no P, there's no S, there's no T, there's no V, W, any of those. These are the only ones that are in the musical alphabet. And we apply them to this staff. Now, again, the G staff, this is our G. Now, this is the hard part of this, is learning where all of these go. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take these and put them on here. So we have G. Let's put our bottom line here is E. Our middle line, our third line, right, line 3 is B. Our fourth line is D. And our top line, our thumb, is F. Now, it's one thing if you want to just memorize this, E, G, B, D, F, and you can do that, that's just fine. It's a little easier, though, if we try to use a mnemonic. That's when we add something to it that helps us to remember it a little bit better. And the way I learned it when I was in school was E stands for every, G, good, B, boy, D, does, F, fine. Every good boy does fine. Or sometimes I would get deserves fudge because I changed schools a lot when I was growing up. But that's a good way to remember it. Even on our hand, right? Every good boy deserves fudge. Every good boy does fine, if you remember it on your hand. But that seems a little childish, right? So we can actually grow this up a little bit into other ones we want to do. So E, let's say Elmo. Or Elvis. Any name. Ethan. Okay. G, goes. Okay. B, bonkers. Sure, why not? D, during. F, football. So Ethan goes bonkers during football. Well, we like football in this state, right? So that one would kind of work for us. If your name is Ethan, obviously you can change it. If your name is Elvis, you can change it. If your name is Elmo, what are you doing here? You have Sesame Street that you need to record. Now, I like dragons. You guys have seen, probably on my arms, I have dragons all over the place, and I'm a huge dragon fan, so I came up with my own. Every great big dragon flies. Every great big dragon flies. Now, there are other ones that are out there. Okay, when I was in college, we were encouraged to come up with our own so that we could use them for our students who thought that the ones we had were a little bit too young. which I get. Sometimes you're like, oh, every good boy does fine. Okay. If you can come up with another one, that's awesome. Whatever helps you to remember it. And also remember your 5 lines, right? E, G, B, D, F. Every great big dragon flies. Okay, this is where our hand is going to be used so we can do this. Now we also said there were 4 spaces. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this one's a little bit easier to remember. Our bottom one is F. Our second one is A. Our third space is C. And our top space is E. F-A-C-E, face. And it's in spaces, so you can say there's a face in my spaces. Okay, that's a little childish too, but you know what? Honestly, this one is the one that I use. I've been doing this for, goodness gracious, 30 years now. And I still remember face in my spaces. Remember our line, F-A-C-E, always with the pinky on the bottom, and always start on the bottom. Okay, now, this gets a little bit confusing when we're trying to figure out the difference between the two of them. Alrighty, but there's an easy way to remember this. So again, our G clef gives us G on this line. As long as we can remember this is the important one, we can figure out the rest of them from there. If we go down line, space, we want to go backwards in our alphabet. Remember, everything's progressive in music from the bottom up. So if we go backwards in our alphabet, what comes before G in our alphabet? Well, that would be F. And what comes before F in our alphabet? Well, that would be E. So we have a line, a space, and a line. Now, our music alphabet, once again, goes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and that's it. Well, at that point, we start over again and go back to A. Alrighty? So we F, E, F, G, and we start over with A. There's fuzzies all over my thing. A. And then we just keep going up. Our middle line, B. The next one is our space, and it's going to be C. The line should be D. Next one's going to be E. So that's our space. And then F. So it stays in alphabetical order on the way up. It just skips when we're doing just lines or just spaces. Okay, but again, if this is the EGBDF, EGBDF, or FACE is a little bit too much, if you can remember, all right, well, second line, boom, is G. It's always G. When you have this clef, this line is always G, no matter what, never changes. Alrighty? Always G. If you can remember that, and then remember, we go from the bottom up, and then remember A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's it. Okay? Always G, bottom up, 7 letters. If you can remember that, usually you can do pretty good about remembering where all of these go. So let's talk about notes. Just real quick, I have our staff here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines and 4 spaces, and our G clef, which means our second line is G, but we're only going to be using C today, okay, because we're just going to be working on notes and note links and note types. So we're going to start with the easiest one, which is this guy right here. This is a whole note. I just realized how small this is, so I'm going to have to bring that in. This is a whole note. All it is kind of a circle there. Can you see it? And if we were to actually write this on our music staff with my little pen here, it would be a circle that touches the top line and the bottom line. This is known, again, as a whole note. So, whole note. It is a whole note because it is 4 beats and takes up a whole measure. We'll get to measures later on. So 4 beats, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Alrighty? And when we count it as 1, 2, 3, 4. And the sound goes for all 4 beats. So if I were to snap and I was to sing this note, ta, I sang it for 4 beats. That's our whole note. Our next note right here is our half note. And it's called that because it's actually half of a whole note. Ooh, fractions, right? Oh, I didn't know I was going to do math today. Yes, you are. So a half note, well, if a whole note is 4 beats, if we're going to cut that in half, we only are left with 2 beats. 1, 2. And then we're going to have 2 beats over here, which is just 3 and 4 that are stuck together. So we would have, if we were to sing this, we have ta, ta. Actually, it would be 2, 2, wouldn't it? 2, 2, to remember how many beats it is. Okay, always just 2 beats. The last note we're going to learn today is the quarter note. And again, it's sort of, it's breaking down our whole note. Our whole note is 4 beats. Well, each of these is going to be 1 beat because it's 1/4 of our whole note. So think of this as like $1. And if we break it into quarters, how many quarters are in $1? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So each of these gets 1 beat. 1 beat, 2, 3, 4. I'm just doing it in 4 beats at a time here. If I was to sing these as ta, I would sing ta, 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 ta. So each of those only gets 1 full beat. So you may have seen something broken down like this before. This is our note tree. And what it does is it shows us how these notes break into each other. So our whole note is at the top because it's, well, it's a whole. Our half note, well, there are 2 halves, right? So each of those, a whole note can be broken into 2 half notes. And then each half note can get broken into a quarter note. So that means all 4 of these quarter notes fit into this half note. So again, 4 beats. Let me write that here. 4 beats, 2 beats, and 1 beat each. Now, what we didn't look at yet was rests. A note, when we play it, makes a sound. All right, ta, or, 2 for the half notes, or we just sing whole for the whole notes. But we also have rests where we don't make any sound. It's literally the instrument, whether it be your voice or the drum or the trumpet or the clarinet or the violin, resting. And we have a different rest for each type of note. Let's start with our whole, which is this one right here. And it sits and it hangs down from the staff line, usually off of D, off of the 4th line. And it, again, is just like a whole note. It is 4 notes. Let me put the whole note over here so we can see that. The half note gets a half rest. Now, these look quite a bit like the whole rest, except instead they're sitting upright. And honestly, they look like little top hats. So that's how I've always remembered it. Half for hat, half. If you can remember it a different way, hey, that's good for you, but that's the way I always remembered it. Half, whole rest on top, half rest on the bottom. And again, it's the same number of beats. 2 beats for a half rest. And our quarter rest is this squiggly guy right here. Looks kind of crazy. And again, there's 1 for each quarter note. And the rest for that lasts for 1 beat. You can see those again. Squiggly guys. And the rests are, again, where we don't make a sound. So I think that's enough for this week. That's a lot to kind of put in our heads, right? make sure you take your quiz for this week so I can make sure we all have understanding of what we went over today. And then I will see you during your Google Meets as well. Make sure you also check out Quaver. There's a little bit more information there on what we're talking about today. And I hope you have a great week. Bye.